Everyone, it's Mrs. Lowe. I am back to read chapters 4, 5, and 6 in Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library. So, exactly what kind of games are we talking about? I don't know, said Akimi. Fun book stuff, I guess. And do you think this new library will have equally new computers? Definitely. Wi Fi? Probably. Kyle nodded slowly, and this all takes place Friday night. Yep. Akimi, I think you just discovered a way for me to shorten my most recent groundation. Your what? My game-deprived parental punishment. Kyle figured being locked in a library with computers on Friday night would be better than being stuck at home without any gaming gear at all. Can I borrow a pen and a sheet of paper? What, you're going to write your essay now on the bus? Better late than never. They're due in homeroom, Kyle, first thing. Fine, I'll keep it brief. Akimi shook her head and handed Kyle a notebook and a pen. The bus bounced over a speed bump into the school driveway. He would need to make his essay really, really short. He was hoping the 12 winners would be randomly pulled out of a hat or something. And, like the lottery people always said in their TV commercials, you just had to be in it to win it. Meanwhile, in another part of town, Charles Chiltington was sitting in his father's library, working with the college student who'd been hired to help him polish up his extra credit essay. He was dressed in his typical school uniform, khaki slacks, blue blazer, button-down shirt, and tastefully striped tie. He was the only student at Alexandriaville Middle School who dressed that way. What's a big word for library? Charles asked his tutor. Teachers love big words. Book repository. Bigger, please. Athenaeum? Perfect. It's such a weird word, they'll have to look it up. Charles made the change, saved the file, and sent the document off to the printer. Your dad sure reads a lot, said his ELA tutor, admiring the leather-bound books lining the wall of Mr. Chiltington's home library. Knowledge is power, said Charles. It's one of our fundamental family philosophies. Another was, we eat losers for breakfast. Kyle and Akimi climbed off the bus and headed into the school. You know, said Akimi, my dad told me the library people had like a bazillion different architects doing drawings and blueprints that they couldn't share with each other. How come? To keep everything super secret. My dad and his firm did the front door, and that was it. The second they stepped into Mrs. Cameron's classroom for homeroom period, Miguel Fernandez shouted, Hey, Kyle, check it out, bro. And he held up a clear plastic binder maybe 2 inches thick. I totally aced my essay, man. The library dealio? Yeah, I put in pictures and charts, plus a whole section about the ancient library of Alexandria, Egypt, since this is Alexandriaville, Ohio. Cool, said Kyle. Miguel Fernandez was super enthusiastic about everything. He was also president of the school's Library Aid Society. Hey, Kyle, you know what they say about libraries? Not really. They have something for every chapter of your life. While Kyle groaned, the second bell rang. All right, everybody, said Mrs. Dana Cameron, Kyle's homeroom teacher. Time to turn in your extra credit essays. She started walking up and down the rows of desks. The judges will be meeting in the faculty lounge this morning to make the preliminary cut. Crap, thought Kyle, there were judges. This was not going to be a bingo ball drawing like the lottery. Mr. Keeley, the teacher hovered over his desk. Did you write an essay? Yeah, sort of. I'm sorry, I don't understand. Either you wrote an essay or you didn't. Kyle half-heartedly handed her his hastily scribbled sheet of paper, and unfortunately Mrs. Cameron read it out loud. Balloons. There might be balloons. The classroom erupted with laughter. Until Mrs. Cameron did that tilt down her glasses and glare over them thing that she did to terrify everybody into total silence. This is your essay, Kyle? Yes, ma'am. We were supposed to write why we're excited about the grand opening, and, well, balloons are always my favorite part. I see, said Mrs. Cameron. You know, Kyle, your brother Curtis wrote excellent essays when he was in my class. Yes, Mrs. Cameron, mumbled Kyle. Mrs. Cameron sighed contentedly. Please give him my regards. Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Cameron moved on to the next desk. Miguel eagerly handed her his thick booklet. Very well done, Miguel. Thank you, Mrs. Cameron. Kyle heard an odd noise out in the parking lot, a puttering, clunking, clanking sound. Oh my, said Mrs. Cameron, I wonder if that's him. She hurried to the window and pulled up the blinds, and all the kids in the classroom followed her, and then they saw it. Out in the visitor parking lot, a car that looked like a giant red boot on wheels It had a stripe of notched black boot sole for its bumper. Thick shoelaces crisscrossed their way up from the windshield to the top of a 10-foot-tall boot collar. It looks just like the red boot from that game, said Miguel. Family Frenzy. Kyle nodded. Family Frenzy was Mr. Lemoncello's first and probably most famous game. The red boot was one of the 10 tokens you could pick to move around the board. A tall, gangly man stepped out of the boot car. It's Mr. Lemoncello, gasped Kyle, his heart racing. What's he doing here? It was just announced, said Mrs. Cameron. This evening, Mr. Luigi Limoncello himself will be the final judge. Of what? Your library essays. Chapter 5. Eating lunch in the cafeteria, Kyle stared at his wilted fish sticks, wishing he could pull a magic take another turn card out of thin air. I blew it, he mumbled. Yep, Akemi agreed. You basically did. Can you imagine how awesome that new library is going to be if Mr. Lemoncello and his Imagination Factory guys had anything to do with it? Yes, I can, and I'm kind of hoping I get to see it too. After all, I wrote a real essay, not one sentence about balloons. Thanks, rub it in. Akemi eased up a little. Hey, Kyle, when you're playing a game like Sorry and you get bumped back 3 spaces, do you usually quit? No, if I get bumped, I play harder because I know I need to find a way to get back those 3 spaces and pull ahead of the pack. Hey, guys! Miguel Fernandez carried his tray over to join Kyle and Akemi. He was being followed by a kid with spiky hair and glasses the size of welder's goggles. You two know Andrew Peckelman, right? Hey, said Kyle and Akemi. Hello. Andrew's one of my top library aides, said Miguel. Cool, said Akemi. Mrs. Younguns, the librarian, just confirmed that Mr. Limoncello is the top secret benefactor who donated all the money to build the new public library. $500 million. She heard it on NPR, added Peckelman, who more or less talked through his nose. So we did some primary source research on Mr. Limoncello and his connection to Alexandriaville. What'd you find out? Asked Kyle. First off, said Miguel, he was born here. He had 9 brothers and sisters, added Andrew. All of them cramped into a tiny apartment with only 1 bathroom over in Little Italy, said Miguel. And, said Peckelman, sounding like he wanted to one-up Miguel, he loved the old public library down on Market Street. He used to go there when he was a kid and needed a quiet space to think and doodle his ideas. And get this, said Miguel eagerly. Mrs. Tobin, the librarian back then, took an interest in little Luigi, even though he was just, a kid like us. She kept the library open late some nights and let him borrow junk from her desk or her purse. Thimbles and thumbtacks and glue bottles, even red Barbie doll boots. Stuff he used for game pieces so he could map out his first ideas on a library table. Then, Andrew jumped in, then Mrs. Tobin took Mr. Limoncello's sketch for Family Frenzy home to her husband, who ran a print shop. They signed some papers, created a company, and within a couple years they were all millionaires. But Miguel had the last word. Now, of course, Mr. Lemoncello is a bazillionaire. What are you 4 nerds so excited about? Said Haley Daly, as she waltzed past with the gaggle of popular girls in her royal court. Haley was a princess of the 7th grade. Blonde hair, blue eyes, blazing bright smile. She looked like a walking toothpaste commercial. We're pumped about Mr. Lemoncello, said Miguel. And the new library, said Andrew. And, said Kyle melodramatically, just seeing you, Haley. You were so immature. Come on, girls. Haley and her friends flounced away to the cool kids' table. Check it out, said Akemi, gesturing toward the cafeteria's food line, where Charles Chiltington was balancing 2 trays, his own and one for Mrs. Cameron. I'm so glad you have lunchroom duty today, Mrs. Cameron, Kyle heard Chiltington say. If you don't mind, I have a few questions about how conventions within genres, such as poetry, drama, or essays, can affect meaning. Well, Charles, I'll be happy to discuss that with you. Thank you, Mrs. Cameron, and may I say that sweater certainly complements your eye color. What a suck-up, mumbled Akemi. Chiltington's trying to use his weaselly charm to make sure Mrs. C sends his essay up the line to Mr. Limoncello. Don't worry, said Kyle. Mrs. Cameron isn't the final judge. Mr. Limoncello is. And since he's a genius, he will definitely pick the essays you guys all wrote. Undoubtedly, said Peckelman. Thanks, Kyle, said Miguel. I just wish you could win with us, said Akemi. Well, maybe I can. Like you said, this is just a move back 3 spaces card. A take a walk on the boardwalk when someone else owns it. It's a shoot in Chutes and Ladders, a detour to the molasses swamp in Candyland. Yo, Kyle, said Miguel, exactly how many board games have you played? Enough to know that you don't ever quit until somebody else actually wins. He picked up his lunch and headed for the dirty tray window. Akimi called after him. Where are you going? I have the rest of lunch and all of study hall to work on a new essay. But Mrs. Cameron won't take it. Maybe, but I've got to roll the dice one more time. Maybe I'll get lucky. I hope so, said Akimi. Me too. See you guys on the bus. Chapter 6. Working on his library essay like he'd never worked on any essay in his whole essay writing life, Kyle crafted a killer thesis sentence that compared libraries to his favorite games. Using a library can make learning about anything and everything fun, he wrote. When you're in a library researching a topic, you're on a scavenger hunt, looking for clues and prizes in books instead of your attic or backyard. He put in points and subpoints. He wrapped everything up with a tidy conclusion, and he even checked his spelling twice. But Akimi had been right. I'm sorry, Kyle, Mrs. Cameron said when he handed her his new paper at the end of the day. This is very good, and I'm impressed by your extra effort. However, the deadline was this morning, and rules are rules, the same as they are in all the board games you mentioned in your essay. She basically handed Kyle a Go Back 500 Spaces card, but Kyle refused to give up. He remembered how his mother had written to Mr. Lemoncello's Imagination Factory when he and his brother needed a fresh set of clue cards for the indoor-outdoor scavenger hunt. Maybe he could send his essay directly to Mr. Lemoncello via email. Maybe if the game maker wasn't judging the essays until later that night, Kyle still had a shot. A long shot, but hey, sometimes the long ones were the only shots you got. The second he hit home, he sat down at his mother's kitchen computer. He attached his essay file to a high-priority email addressed to Mr. Lemoncello at the Imagination Factory. What are you doing, Kyle? His mom asked when she came into the room and found him typing on her computer. Some extra credit homework. Extra credit? School's out at the end of the week. So? You're not playing my Diner Dash game, are you? No, Mom, it's an essay about Mr. Lemoncello's amazing new library downtown. Oh, sounds interesting. I heard on the radio that there's going to be a gala grand opening reception this Friday night at the Parker House Hotel, right across the street from the old bank building. I mean, the new library. Kyle typed in a PS to his email. I hope at the party on Friday you have balloons, and he hit send. Who did you send your essay to? His mother asked. Your teacher? Nope, Mr. Lemoncello himself. It took some digging, but I found his email address on his game company's website. Really? I'm impressed. His mom rubbed his hair. You know, this morning I said to your dad, Kyle can be just as smart as Curtis and just as focused as Mike when he puts his mind to it. Thanks, Mom. But his smile disappeared quickly when a bong alerted him to an incoming mail. It was from Mr. Lemoncello. It was an auto-response form letter. Dear Lemoncello Game Lover, this is a no-reply mailbox. Your message did not go through. Do not try to resend it or you'll just hear another bong, but thank you for playing our games. That's the end.